All right, and we are ready. Okay, folks, thanks for signing up for this fabulous hour of power. I am super excited about this topic and very excited to have Renee here. I have been looking for quite a few years for someone to be able to refer to and talk about the mental side of performance and athletics and whatever else. The mental side is the big deal, right? It runs everything. So I'm super happy that we have Renee here to be able to talk to us about this very important topic. So without further ado, I will let Renee introduce herself.
Amazing. And could you enable my screen sharing, Michelle?
Now I have to figure out how to do that. I'm not that advanced.
I think if
Um,
you
share screen.
find my little box and there's the three buttons in the top right, I think you could make co-host
Oh, okay.
or,
I'm gonna just change the host.
oh, got it.
There we go.
Okay,
How about that?
fabulous. It worked perfectly. So let's go here. Okay, fabulous. So, like Michelle mentioned, let's go presenter view. Can everyone see my screen?
Hey, you know what, Renee?
Yeah.
So that like changed my recording, I think. Oh, well, no, it says it's recording. So, all right, I'm just going to assume it still is. I hope it is.
Okay.
All right, go for it.
It says it is on my side too, Michelle. So probably good.
Okay. And you guys are all just seeing the main screen with my blue thing.
We're seeing something that says audience window,
Oh,
enter full
weird.
screen mode.
Okay. Bear with me with technology
No
and
problem.
the human behind it. Let's see. Da-da. Okay, we're just gonna go this way and then I'll get into all the goods. Oh, and I'm gonna keep seeing people pop in, I just realized. So I'll just keep admitting them. If you see a pop-up, uh, you'll see a pop-up. Okay, now this should be better. Can everyone see that? Okay, fabulous. So to share a little bit about me is and why I'm here. My name is Renee Yomtob. And I really loved sports my whole life, maybe like you folks. I played sports, all different sports, individual, team, all through high school, middle school. I even played volleyball in college. I finished out my career, but the first couple years, I was a big head case. I would kill it in practice. All of my reps would be good. And then as soon as that game hit, I just was so shaky that even my college team gave me a nickname, Jitter Pig, because I was so jittery and then I spilt a lot. That was the pig part. But the jittery part was because I could not settle. I was like not grounded. I wasn't allowing my body to do what it knows how to do. I was just a head case. So I really got into this because I was so fascinated with how the mind works and how the mind really controls the body. So after college, I struggled through some health problems, which I'll share about in a little bit, which led me to a lot of the modalities that I use today: hypnosis, mental emotional release, negative or neurolinguistic programming, yoga, meditation, breath work, anything that really works with the unconscious mind so that we can train our brain to operate at its peak, just like we train our bodies to operate at its peak. I ended up loving it so much. I worked for the training company that trained me, and I traveled all around the US certifying doctors and therapists and first responders and C-suite executives, teachers, random people who just wanted to learn this for themselves. Uh, it was the best. I loved it so much. And then I just realized that for my own goals, I missed that one-on-one action where you can really just dive deep with people, where folks tend to be a little bit more vulnerable and you can really get to the root of the um, the root of it and really see some really lasting change. Oop, I think somebody just mute them. So before we dive a little bit deeper, I want to paint a picture for you, and this might feel familiar or seem familiar. So it's a chilly, overcast day in Oxford, England in 1954. Just under 3,000 people are there watching, and they don't know that they're about to witness history. Then at the starting line is Roger Bannister. He's a 25-year-old medical student, and he's about to attempt what many experts said was impossible, running a mile under 4 minutes, which I'm sure you all know. Most believed at this point that the human body wasn't even capable of it because no one had done it before, though many had tried. But Bannister thought a little bit differently. He knew that it was a mental barrier just as much as a physical. So the gun goes off, the race begins. He's focused, he's calm, and as the race progresses, he realizes he's a little bit behind. What could derail a lot of mindsets doesn't derail his. He trusts his training. He digs in a little bit deeper. And the final lap, the last 200, he pushed through every bit of pain, mental, physical. He kept his mind sharp. The crowd's on its feet, cheering wildly. He crosses the finish line. 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds. He did what was once impossible. And since that, 1,755 athletes have done it since. They've done what people have said was not possible. So was it really not possible, or was it just they hadn't seen it done before? So everything that we do begins in the mind first, whether that is an experience that we like, something that's comfortable and positive, like breaking a world record, or if it's something uncomfortable that we experience during a race or before, like those pre-game, those pre-race nerves, the maybe doubt that creeps in during workouts even. All of that begins in our mind and then comes down to the body. So we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And I want to begin first with this. It's all queued up. We're good to go. With this quick little video. Can everyone see that? Okay, so the instructions are count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball.
Count how many times
So count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. Okay, how many passes?
8.
Oh, okay, let's pull up the chat. 14. Laura says 14.
I got like 7.
Maybe 8.
Anybody else get a number? Shira says 10. Colleen 13. Okay,
7.
here we go.
I got
The
8.
correct answer is 15.
Well,
But did you see the gorilla? Laura's saying yes. Okay. If you don't know what's being talked about, in the middle of this, a gorilla walks across screen, pounds his chest, and walks off the screen. So it's just so silly. I'll do this to big groups of kids and they just like giggle throughout the whole thing. So who saw it? Nice. Okay, so a lot of you saw it. Some of you didn't. If you did see the gorilla, can you tell me what letter was written on the back wall? Or can you tell me how many of them were wearing black shoes and how many were wearing white shoes? How many had ponytails and how many had their hair down? How many in black shirts, how many in white shirts? Right? So on some layer, on some level, we didn't take in all the information there could be taken in. And that's because out of 2 million bits of information at any given time, we have the capacity to take in 193 bits. So for every 2 million, there's 193 that we can take in. And think about it, even in this moment, right? You can see the screen, obviously, that you're looking at, but maybe you like also in your peripheral, there's so much on your desk. Maybe you just moved like me and there's like stuff all over your desk. Maybe you have the AC on, you feel a little breeze. Maybe there's like a tag that you're feeling. Maybe you have a neighbor or a dog that you're hearing things from, or traffic on the street. Maybe if you tuned into your body, you would notice that, like, oh, maybe I'm kind of hungry. Did I eat lunch today? Did I, whatever it was? So there's so much information that we can take in that what we all individually take in is based off of our own internal filters. So, for example, let's say something external happens to us. Let's say somebody cuts us off in traffic. We experience somebody cutting us off in traffic through our own set of filters. The first way that we filter information is we delete, which an example for this would be like, have you ever set a goal, whether it's in a workout or a race, and you didn't reach your goal and you deleted any other good thing that you did that day because you didn't do that one thing, right? So you deleted all of the other beautiful things that happened, all of the awesome goals that you did meet to even get there because you didn't do this one thing. So we go through our filters by deleting information. The second is we distort information. So this is like if you've ever woken up on the wrong side of the bed and halfway through the day, you're like, oh, everyone is just in a mood today. Like everyone's just cranky. And then you have to be like, oh, it's not everyone, right? Because how we're feeling, how the current state that we're experiencing is affecting our perception of what's happening around us. And the third is generalizing, which is, uh, let's say we miss a workout one morning and we hit the snooze button, and then that spiral of talk goes through our head of like, oh, I always do this. I always say I'm going to do something and I don't do it. And it's like, do you always, or has it happened a couple times? Right? It's like you're painting your experience with a very broad generalization brush. And so all of these things, our filters, how we experience an external event through our filters directly impacts our experience and therefore our behaviors. And so it's like this big loop that continues to like fulfill itself and just keeps running unconsciously unless we really take a conscious effort to focus on it. Because we can have our filters work for us, not against us, as long as we're really aware of what's there. And I want to share a little bit of an example because I work with a lot of athletes who come to me and they're like, I really want to perform better in my sport, whatever that sport is, and whatever level, to be honest. It could be high school, middle school, professionals, it's all the same thing. They want to get better at their sport. But spoiler, you have to look at the rest of your life because as much as we like to think we can compartmentalize, we really can't. How we do one thing is how we do everything. So we really get to zoom out and look at our whole life and what's going on. So these filters can really help us not just in our performance, not just in your performance as triathletes, but in life as well. So an example of this and how I found this training was uh, a while ago, I was dealing with some health struggles. I recently had a narcolepsy diagnosis. And if you're not sure what narcolepsy is, at the time, I'm not fresh on the research now, but at the time it was a neurological disease that doctors told me I'd live with forever. They called it a 24-hour disease. It stunted my ability to get REM sleep, so I wasn't sleeping well, but then I was always tired, and then all of the really cool emotional stuff that comes with that, like depression and anxiety, and a just total disregard for anything in life. I had spent a couple years trying anything I could to feel a little bit better. I went to naturopaths. I took what felt like 2 million supplements. I did like food allergy tests. I did, different types of diets. I did EMDR and cognitive behavioral therapy. I did all sorts of things because I was like, oh my gosh, I just need to feel a little bit better. And so I hit my point where I said, I, doc, just give me anything that you can. And he said, okay, we'll put you on two uppers during the day to make you stay awake, and then we'll put you on an antidepressant at night to help you go to sleep. And you'll be on this forever and you'll feel about 10% better. And I was like, cool. I feel so bad. I'll take it. Like anything could be better than this. And I told him, I said, I have a 2-week training I'm going to go to. When I get back, I'll get on this. And he's like, deal. So I go to the training, and day one, I'm sitting there in my chair, and the trainer from stage says 99% of disease is psychosomatic, meaning it starts in the brain. And I immediately, my walls went up, and I said, you're probably right. Narcolepsy is the 1%. I'm like sitting there all smug in my chair. I'm like, my disease is the real one. I'm like white knuckling this truth that is causing me so much harm. And as they start referencing all this like peer-reviewed research and all of these studies, my walls are just coming up even more and they're like reinforcing. There's multiple walls now. And then I just hit a moment. I can remember it so vividly sitting in the chair where I thought to myself, I can either feel better or I can be right. Like I cannot have both of these things in this moment. So I said, okay, worst case, I'm right back here. Best case, it's true and my life changes. After that moment, after that day, all of my symptoms went away and they haven't come back for probably 5 years now. So what was happening was I was filtering all of my experience through some really unserving filters. And I'll give you one example as we go through this. A tiny little tweak that we can make. And a little tweak, I was yawning all the time. Let me get David in here. I would be yawning all the time because I wasn't getting sleep. So every time I yawned, I had this little voice that was like, oh gosh, I'm so tired. Then 20 minutes later, I would yawn again and I'd say, I'm always tired. Of course, this is the case. So a tiny little tweak I started making even that day was a yawn no longer meant that I was tired. It meant that I was so relaxed. So every time I'd yawn, I'd be like, ooh, I am relaxed today. And then I'd go one step farther and I'd yawn and I'd say, ooh, I'm so relaxed. That means I'm going to learn even more, or wow, I'm so comfortable here. I just was like, let me go for it. Let me just reframe all of these things that I know to be true because currently my truth sucks. So what else could be true? How else could I change these filters to help me have a different experience through life? So what we're going to talk about, something that you can do tangibly to change your filters, there's a lot. These are just the ones I do, but there's hypnosis, mental emotional release, which is a clinically researched technique that gets to the root of the problem, not just what you're experiencing. Yoga, breath work, mindfulness exercises, visualization. There's more than this. If you're feeling called to anything, I just say go with what feels right. Some people really like the tapping. Some people like EMDR. Some people like whatever it is, it's the forward movement that's important. I'm obviously a big fan of these, but there's way more out there. The one that we're going to go over today that can be something that you can tangibly use anytime you're experiencing something uncomfortable is what I like to call first circle, second circle. So first circle is, I'm just going to use my hands to demonstrate. First circle is the facts, the truth. Like no bias, nothing. This is what's currently happening. Second circle, over here, second circle, is the story that we like to tell about it. So for example, I'll give the narcolepsy example. I yawned. Thinking that that means I'm tired, that's a story. That's the second circle. Thinking that it means that I'm relaxed, that I'm going to learn better, whatever it is, that's also second circle. So we want to practice getting back to like, what's the first circle? Because usually when we struggle, it's because we're living in that second circle. If you're experiencing, even in life, not just in performance, but in life, if you're experiencing that maybe you're someone really angers you, and you can't seem to let go. And you're like, well, they really wronged me, or I feel really hurt about something. And that spiral kind of happens and we stay in that. It's that we're staying in the second circle and we want to strip it back to like what actually happened without my filtering the experience. And so this can happen with everything that we do. I taught my husband this just a year ago, and now he tells me all the time. He'll be like, are you in the first circle or the second circle? And I'm like, okay, good catch. So how this can, I took some of the examples. I'm so glad some of you sent some questions to Michelle because I wanted to really directly show you how first circle, second circle can help with some of these questions that you had and some of these experiences that you have. Something I heard, a couple of you had questions about like performance anxiety or feeling nervous before an event. Does anybody have this? Like it could be before talks at work or presentations or race-related things or workouts. So performance anxiety and nervousness, why don't you put in the chat, what do you experience if you're nervous before something? What would be the first circle experience? See if I can pull it up. Heart racing. Yes, Laura. Yep, elevated heart rate, sweating, yawning. Yes. So butterfly in stomach, hard to eat. Yes. And you might have heard this reframe, tension overall. What is the first circle experience of being really excited? Would you say that it's maybe heart race, a little sweaty, maybe some butterflies in our stomach? So the nervousness, or I should say the symptoms, the first circle, that's not the problem, right? The heart racing, the stomach, the maybe tension, that's not necessarily causing problems. It's the story about what those mean. So if you're a moment before a race or a performance of some sort and you're like noticing yourself kind of going down a spiral, or you're noticing the self-talk be like, uh-oh, my heart's racing, my breathing is getting a little heavier. You're going from fact to that means I'm nervous. Uh-oh, does that mean I'm not prepared? Should I have done more? Oh gosh, this is going to go terribly because I always do this, right? These little things that these little cycles that we get in. So if you're in that moment and you notice it happen, just allow yourself to come back to like, what's actually happening? Butterflies in my stomach, maybe a little sweaty, maybe the tension, the heart racing. That means I'm excited. That means I'm so prepared for this because my body is excited for what's about to happen. I can't wait till the end of this, right? So you're changing the meaning, but before you do that, you have to be able to go back and see what's actually happening. And this is actually rooted a little bit. Do you have a question?
I do. So,
Michelle, I can't hear you.
I know this has to be practiced for things to work, but in your experience,
Renee, is that me? Sorry, I was on mute. Can you say that again?
Yeah. So I know that this has to be practiced in order for it to work. But in your experience, when you get good at this, do the symptoms actually diminish, or do you just get okay with the symptoms?
It's kind of a both. So a lot of this is actually rooted in mindfulness. We use it in a lot of the the, MER and NLP and all of those more technical tools. But if we go back thousands of years, it's actually rooted in yoga and mindfulness, and that the practice of coming back to the present moment, because anytime we're in that second circle, anytime we're in the story, we're not actually present. So coming back to the actual sensation rather than the story, you will start to notice over time that the sensation does disappear. It's the coolest thing. There was one time, I'll share another example, where I used to have really bad panic attacks. And then I started doing yoga and really diving into meditation, again, where the practice is not to clear your mind. That's a great bonus when it happens, but the purpose is really to build that muscle of coming back to the present moment. And I had been practicing meditation for maybe 6 months at the time, and I was noticing sensation come up. I was visiting a friend, I was sleeping on her couch. I had had a cocktail at dinner the night before. I don't normally drink, but I felt like doing it. And I just noticed this sensation come up, and past me would have been like, uh-oh, I know this feeling. This is a panic attack. But I was like, okay, let me practice what I've been practicing. So I stripped away the story. I stripped away the second circle, and I said, okay, I'm noticing something kind of in my chest. It's coming up to my throat. Oh, that feels weird, And then I tracked it all the way. I had one tear come down, and it took maybe 20 seconds, and then all of my sensation went away. And I was like, that's cool. I didn't know that would come from practicing meditation, but when you do practice, like you pointed out, Michelle, right? It is a practice. Uh, you will start to gain that muscle to allow sensation to move through you rather than making it be stagnant. Does that answer your question? Yeah, so a lot of this is rooted in yoga, like thousands and thousands of years old yoga. So similar, like I mentioned, the physical aspects of stress and anxiety, like an upset stomach, right? What else could that upset stomach mean? Really coming back to the present moment. And then I had a question come through of like, what do I do during negative thoughts if they pop up during a race or a workout? So I would take the example of Roger Bannister, and if you have another example, I'm happy to help work through it. But let's say you like check your watch and you're like, uh-oh, I'm a little bit behind, right? And that can cause a spiral, or that could cause doubt, or the negative thought could be like, I'm not going to make my goal because I'm behind. Or a negative thought could be, I didn't prepare as well as I thought I did, or this is all going to go downhill from here. Whatever these negative thoughts come through, that's just, again, being in the second circle and being away from the present moment. So what can you come back to in those moments that allow you to be in the facts, right? So the fact, maybe you are a little bit behind. Has there ever been a time that you've been behind and you came back? Probably in training, right? And so just because you're behind doesn't mean that you're going to miss your goal or continue to get behind. And so you're another thing I like to do is when you come back to the facts, the first circle, what can you look at that is, what are all the things that are going well for you, right? Because you can pick up the pace. That could be one of the things. You could start to notice that like your body's just starting to like feel warm and loose. So that means that maybe you're actually going to pick up the pace later, right? Like what are all the things that are going well so you're not blanket generalizing how the rest of your race is going to go, the rest of your workout's going to go. So you're not deleting or distorting your experience, because that's not going to help your performance. What will help your performance is neutrality, getting back to that first circle, and then deciding from there where you need to go, free from emotion. Because I don't know about you, but things like fun and excitement and things that I want fuel me a lot more than me being really mean to myself in my head. I rarely go farther when I'm calling myself names, right? So stripping back what's actually happening, detaching from the story of the negative thought, which is the second circle, that's what you could do when that occurs. Does that make sense? I didn't write who wrote these questions, but if there's any other follow-up on there, you're welcome to hop off at any time. And then the third is focusing during the cue before, like an Ironman, before you dig in, where can you put your mind to really help yourself in this moment? It's the same thing. Come back to that first circle. What can you notice around you? What can you notice in your body? What can you see? A lot of the times I work with athletes who, they'll play on team sports. And so let's say it's a football player and I'm like, can you see the blades of grass? Can you like really focus your attention to like see the detail around you? Can you smell the air and like smell that sense of fall in the air? Maybe you have gum. Can you taste that? Can you like, what can you really tune into in this moment to fully be present? Because athletes who can perform or who can be present perform the best, because that's where that flow state happens. That's where you get in the zone. You can't get there if you're not present. So just recapping all the senses, what do you see all around you? You can pinpoint, you can be like, I see the mountains, I see someone next to me, I see like, try to find 5 things that you see, 5 things that you hear, 5 things. I mean, taste is, unless you're like eating or you have coffee breath or something, it can be a little tough sometimes to find 5, but really go through the list and try to get so present to this experience now. Because if you're looking for something now, it's a lot harder to be somewhere in the future. So stripping that back and coming back to the present moment. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So first circle, second circle is going to mitigate a lot of this runaway mind of ours. And it's going to help change those filters over time where we can just strip it back and make it more simple. Excuse me. That is what I would say is the best place to start. And if anybody does want to dive into meditation, this is how Michelle and I actually met. I'm happy to share with you where you can get started with the meditation practice. It can feel really daunting at times to dive into the old noggin of ours. So feel free to, Michelle has my info. I'm happy to pass along any additional information on that. But this one, first circle, second circle, is the one that can really, really help retrain that brain. And I'd like to open it up too, if you have any questions or any specific instances that you deal with that you would like to know how to work through.
So I have tons of questions, but somebody else could go ahead of me. So
David, did you have a question?
Yes. I don't know if you can hear me or not. My microphone muted.
Nope, you're all good.
Oh, good. I think when I have an anxiety, it's usually at a time when I'm doing something that I haven't done before, a new experience. I talked about this with Michelle a while back, where I feel like your mind hasn't given you permission to do whatever it is, whatever you're trying to do, and you get stressed, nervous about it. And I guess until you have done it and had that experience, is there a way to deal with that without having the experience where your mind says, okay, we've done this before, it's okay, you can do this? Is there something you can do to set yourself up to have that positivity prior?
I love that question. I really appreciate that question because there's a lot of different approaches of how to tackle something like this. You can either reframe yourself of what you're experiencing, Or the one that I really like, David, which is working on your relationship to change and new things. Because you don't need to trick your brain that you've done something you haven't done before. But how cool would it be to get into a place where you can be excited to try something that you haven't tried before? That it doesn't cause anxiety, that in fact you're like, oh, I've tried new things before. Like, uh, for example, have you ever gone on a trip somewhere before that you haven't been?
Yes.
Where was it?
Well, um, we've gone on, well, I say cruises. We've gone different states, different traveling, and it's always, well, I say, stressful when you don't know where you're going and you're not clear in your mind the direction. So just like even just driving someplace where you haven't been, and it's easy to get yourself all worked up over being late or getting totally lost.
Yes, it is so easy to get wrapped up in that. And I would say, David, that that's the second circle, right? If I'm worried about getting lost, if I'm worried about being late to things, being behind on things, that's the second circle. So if you strip everything back, can you think of a moment that maybe you did feel nervous about, specifically because you hadn't done it before? Can you think of a specific example?
I think possibly the first time that might have been a case of that is the let's see now. I think it was the first Ironman, half Ironman in Coeur d'Alene
Hmm.
during the swim. I had not swum in a group. I've always been by myself, never been around a lot of other swimmers, other than in shorter races, more familiar circumstances. This one, because of the distance, the amount of people, just felt more intimidating. And I think that I started to hyperventilate, which I'm assuming is a stress cause situation. So
Yeah.
that was probably the first one I can really recall.
Well, thank you for sharing about that. So, if you were to be able to go back, David, what would be the first circle things you were experiencing in that moment?
Nervousness about what knowing where I'm going, actually be able to see where I'm going with so many people around, so much activity, um, the splashing, the bumping into people.
I want to
Um,
get
yeah,
a little bit deeper, one more layer. How did you know you were nervous? What were you experiencing to know you were nervous?
hyperventilating. I was just starting to hyperventilate.
The breathing?
Yeah,
Yep.
that was the only thing that was going on that caused me any kind of problem. I just could not catch my breath.
Mm.
I had done shorter triathlons prior, and I've swum the distance prior. I knew that I could do it, but it was just the condition. It might have been too. The water was a little colder than usually swim in. That might have had some effect to it.
Yeah, I would recommend really trying this practice, and this could be in daily life. It doesn't just have to be performance, because like Michelle pointed out, it is a practice and an accumulative, it accumulates our ability over time the more we do it, similar to meditation, similar to any of these other tools, is uh, stripping back to what's actually happening. Because I'd be curious what was happening before you were hyperventilating? I'll speak to my own personal experience when I used to have panic attacks. The hyperventilating came after I made meaning to something. So I would start to feel something in my body, and then I'd go like, uh-oh. It's like my mind would say, ooh, I know what this is. I don't want this to happen. And then my body would get even more tight because I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. I know what's coming. Oh, I hate when this happens. And then the
Yeah,
breathing starts to get out of control. And so
right.
if you can develop that muscle and that practice before the meaning comes in, before we work ourselves up, I wonder if you can catch it before it gets to the hyperventilating part. If you're like, oh, ooh, I'm noticing something. Okay, this is just sensation. I know I can do it. I've swum this distance before. yeah, it's a little chillier, but maybe I'm going to be hot, so this will work for me anyway,
Mhm.
right? You're like kind of focusing on all the things that you also know to be true, not the big
Yeah.
question marks. And by practicing that muscle of stripping back to that
Mhm.
first circle, you might notice that over time you can catch yourself from getting to a point where it feels like of no return.
Mhm. I think another thing that I've noticed too is working with Michelle on swim technique of probably when I was out that one time, I was probably swimming harder than I should have been,
Mm,
working harder at it, which caused me to breathe harder than I should not have been. So there was multiple layers to the problem. And I noticed, I think the same year I did a sprint triathlon, and there was, I don't know, 1,000 or so people, and we were all bumping into each other. And I then I was swimming slower stroke count, and it felt more amusing with people doing all kinds of crazy strokes and looking around to find out where they're going. That it didn't bother me a bit. You know, it was kind of entertaining.
that's awesome. That's a great perspective. And you're totally right. It's layered. Our experience is layered. And if we can manage this, then it can have a really profound impact on our bodies. I can't speak to anything other than doggy paddling, but I'm sure the form and all of that jazz has stuff to do with it as
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
well. Well, thanks for sharing and asking that question, David.
Okay.
I
And
have a, here, I'll turn my camera on. I have a comment and I apologize for being late. I was having technical difficulties. Anyway, so I can totally relate to David because when I started this triathlon journey, I was so terrified of water and I didn't have the hyperventilation, but I would get in the water and my mind was so powerful. My mind would say, you can't do this. Get out. Like, get
mm,
out right now. Like it was terrible. And I'd have to stop and calm down. And I don't have that so much anymore because I've really worked so hard at it. But I had an interesting experience on Saturday where I ran a half marathon and Michelle just had me do it as a training run. And we actually were planning on starting the race like really as slow as I could possibly go.
mm.
And as I was having this mindset, I was just there and just looking around and whatever. And the people around me in the queue were like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Like, you could just hear like everybody. And I thought, but I wasn't at all. I was like, whatever. But what I want to be able to do is when I go to the Ironman, because I'm not trying to get any time at all. I just want to finish. So how can I have that same mindset rather than, oh my gosh, this is what I've been training for? And so now I create this story of like, this is a big thing, as opposed to, okay, no, this is just go slow like you've been doing, be entertained like David was, but it's all in your head at that point. And so that's what I'm trying to do. It's so hard.
Well, I'd like to highlight something you just said, which is you have a very powerful mind. Your words, right? You said my mind was so powerful. So that means that that can work for you, right? Even though it hasn't been feeling like it's been working for you, the power of your mind is there, which is great news. Now it's just kind of directing it back to the experience that you really want it to have. And so you've already told yourself, if you get to race day, here's the things I would tell myself. This would be an example of you've done this before. You know how to be calm before a race. You know how to be entertained. You know how to like enjoy the experience because you've done it before, right? So if you're noticing these things coming up, first you strip it back to like, okay, what am I actually experiencing? And then you get to go back and kind of undelete all of the times that you have done this already. This is just a different race, different location, but you've done it for a race before, so why can't you do it now? Right? So it's you're kind of undeleting all this information, all of this proof for your mind and your unconscious mind that you know exactly what to do. Because you do, right, Sherry? Your mind is powerful. You've done it this half marathon.
I know I did a lot of and to get over my fear of water, but I'm still in the back of my mind, I have this tiny space that still says, what if that happens again? You know what I mean? But for the most part, I've done a lot of visualization and tried to visualize the swim. And when I'm in the pool training, I tell myself I like swimming because sometimes I really do.
Yes.
I tell myself, wait, this feels good. I like this.
Yes.
I'm trying to take that with me into race day. That's, but
Yes.
for some reason it doesn't want to transfer all the time.
And you absolutely can. I don't know if anybody here has dove into, repeating positive affirmations to yourself. A lot of athletes do it. And Sherry, when I was a college athlete, I knew I was going to start my very first game. I knew it. So I had all day to just kind of ruminate on everything that could go wrong. And instead, I decided to do what you kind of did. I was like, oh, I love volleyball. And I would walk around. This was my dorm at the time. I probably looked like a crazy person, but out loud, I was like, I love serve receive. I'm so fast on defense. I've dug so many balls in my life. This is going to be so fun tonight. And I would just repeat it over and over because kind of like the gorilla, that's then what we start to see, right? There's that old saying that you have to see it to believe it. And actually the opposite is true. You have to believe it to see it, right? So when I was growing up in high school, I found out that my crush had this like bright red truck. And I'm not a car person. I'm like, I know they have four wheels, a steering wheel. That's about it. But I knew he had a red truck. And as soon as I learned that, I was seeing red trucks everywhere, right? Because my brain was like looking for it. And it's not that there were all of a sudden more trucks, more red trucks on the road in Meridian. It's that I was now looking for it. And so just like you're kind of already doing for yourself is, I love swimming. This is so fun. I love this. This is kind of a funny experience. This is awesome. Like I've done this before. I know how to do this. I know how to swim. I know how to race. I know how to calm myself. I've been calm before. All of this stuff, when you start to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, you'll start to see it, right? Versus if you're like, uh-oh, I'm stressed. I'm really stressed about this race. I don't want this to happen. Then like that's what you're going to start to see. So it sounds like you're already on the right track and it's just more and more. Yeah. It's really interesting, the mind. It doesn't, the unconscious mind doesn't process negatives, meaning that instead of focusing on what we don't want, it's important that we focus on what we do want. For example, if I were to tell you to think of a bright purple elephant, or don't think of an orange elephant, right? You have to pull up an orange elephant and then not think about it. But in order to not think about it, you had to think about it. And so what they say for folks who like downhill ski, the ones in the trees, you don't want to focus on the trees that you don't want to hit because then what will happen? You'll run right into it. They say focus on the white, focus on the snow, right?
Yeah, that's so funny because I'm an avid skier and I do a lot of tree skiing and you never look at the tree. If you look at the tree, you will hit the tree.
Exactly. And so the same is everywhere. That's exactly it. The same is everywhere. If we focus on, I don't want to be stressed before this race. I don't want to be worried before this. I don't want that performance anxiety to come in again. What's going to happen? That's what we're going to see, right? And so we really, all of this, the first circle, the second circle, it's all just training our brain to come back to now. Yeah. And focus on what you do want. That was a great question. You're going to do great. You guys are going to do great. Any other questions? I know we have a hard stop in 7 minutes.
We do. Yeah, we've got about 7 minutes. So I have one more, but go ahead and go for it, folks.
Oh, you're talking to me?
I can ask my question. I'll ask my question. All right. So here's my question, Renee. So you listed all those modalities on that slide. Is there a specific? Well, let me ask it this way: could you go through those modalities just with really quick like explanations? And then are there modalities that are better for certain kinds of adjustments than others? And I can give you a specific example if you need it, but go ahead.
So I like to break those modalities into two groups. One group is dealing with the unconscious mind on maybe a more, we can call it like clinical level. So hypnosis is like a direct line to the unconscious mind. It's a way, has anybody here been hypnotized before?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So David, maybe you've experienced this, but when you're in trance, you're aware what's going on, but you're also not. It's a really cool experience. If anyone's done yoga nidra,
Yeah.
for me, it feels very similar. But you're aware of the suggestions that are coming, but you're also
Mhm.
like kind of, I don't want to say asleep, but it's kind of a fine line. And that is really helpful because it cuts through this conscious mind that's like, well, this thing happened when I was 12 years old, so of course I'm going to be afraid of this. Or the conscious mind that's like, I don't think I can let go of this because of whatever other reasons we have. It cuts through all our human BS and it goes straight to the unconscious mind where we store these emotions, these beliefs, everything like that. So that's what hypnosis does. It's being in trance. It's just a guided process where we're in trance and then there are what's called post-hypnotic suggestions that the unconscious mind can listen to. So think about like affirmations on steroids because it's going right to the source. Mental emotional release is a clinically researched technique in comparison with cognitive behavioral therapy. And again, it's a guided process. So you close your eyes, and it has to do with how we all individually experience time. So you go back to what the root problem is, which is generally between ages 0 and 7, what the unconscious root is that's causing the experience today. So if you're experiencing anxiety today that's being triggered by something else, MER goes to what's actually the root of your anxiety in general that's causing you to experience this today. So it's a really easy process. They found in this study that for folks who were clinically depressed, if they had 5 sessions of mental emotional release, 98% of them, their depression went away and it never came back. Like never. And they tracked them for a very long time. And so because you're getting this root issue and not just dealing with like the present stuff, it kind of clears it out. I like to envision it like you're pulling weeds from your timeline, like in how you experience time. Uh, and neurolinguistic programming is still in that group where it's just the language of the mind. So working with the unconscious mind. NLP is used all the time in sales, politicians. It's just how can we use it for ourselves to really work for us. And then the other arm is the day-to-day stuff. So what which is yeah, the meditation, the yoga, the breath work, and that is building the tools and the muscle to be able to manage your uh, experience and relationship with emotions and sensations as they arise day to day. So I think both are really important. I like the first one, the first set of tools to really clean the slate, to get rid of a lot of this stuff that's protecting the lens. And then I like this day-to-day stuff so that you can see that lasting change, because if things come, you know how to kind of come back to the present moment. Does that answer your question? I think all of them could be used for anything. Um, it's just important to know what you're dealing with.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Do you have so since you're not in Boise anymore, do you do this work virtually? Do you have people that are here in Boise that you can refer to, or?
I do one-on-ones purely virtually.
Okay.
So I have clients in overseas that are athletes that are in different time zones. Technology has really made it easy. So even if we were in the same place, I'd recommend doing it virtually for some other reasons. I can tell you I tried to do them in person when I first started because I was like, I want the experience of whatever. And it was really interesting. People started anchoring to specific places where if we go virtual, you get to kind of experience yourself as a new person in your own home, which I think is powerful and kind of makes some cool neurological connections that are a little deeper. So virtually from anywhere.
That's great. That's great. Good.
Even from Switzerland, Michelle.
I'd love to be back there.
I know.
All right, you guys, we have like a minute or two left. Anybody have any last questions or comments to make? This has been super awesome.
Thank you all for showing up.
For myself, I know that the power of positive thinking definitely works, or does work for me anyway. You tell yourself you can do it. Usually you can do it if you have proper preparation.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. This mind of ours can do so much. You know, it's just our job to make sure it's doing the things that we want it to. Yeah. So Michelle has my information. Thank you all for showing up today. I think the growth we have ourselves trickles down into the people all around us. So just by showing up for yourself, you're making an impact for your family and your loved ones. So thanks for showing up. And if you all have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me. I can geek out about this for way too long. Otherwise, good luck in all your future races.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. And thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for next month, and we'll get a topic for you here shortly so that we can start thinking about what we'll do in October. But have a great evening.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right, let's see here. I gotta stop recording. Oh,
I think
you
I
have to
can
stop recording.
Okay. Let's see.